Testing the Zoom audio.
units, and then we'll do the paddles from there.
Yeah, do you want to bring the phone in the middle?
Yeah, maybe we have the two paddles, so we'll just do, because we have to call from there and then we.
Yeah. Yeah, we only had plug it for, we were trying to troubleshoot something, but I could definitely plug it in the middle.
Yeah, we're gonna, middle here, and then we'll, maybe I'll grab one of these other tables and we'll just hold it in the middle, all right?
Good morning, come in.
Julian, is one of these the guest password? Okay.
Yeah, okay, thank you. You're welcome.
This is Julian, right?
Yep.
Maybe.
It's okay. I've had somebody call me Justin, Jason,
Well,
Jillian. I was like, I'm not even girl.
you got the J part.
Yeah. I might have to be
You
there.
guys have this.
Is a get.
Yep.
Yeah, third floor, at 10:30 and back down here at 11:30.
Good morning, guys. Can you hear me all right this morning?
Yeah, I think we'll switch up the audio to the phone though, so that way we get the paddle mic by Jim and the chair and everybody's.
Morning.
Hey, Julie.
How's it going?
Fantastic.
Good.
Just happy that the power is on and internet is
All right.
working and my
I was
family.
ripping like 4 inches of snow off my car this morning.
Oh,
Like
geez.
this thick. Yeah. So I'm glad the power didn't go out too.
Yeah, welcome to February.
Right. I'm just waiting for this to boot up.
Sure. Then Lori, if we're thinking here, then we even need Joe to log into Zoom.
I can't even get online yet. So.
Okay, I think between me just sharing the presentation, this computer.
Yeah, I mean, Alex, if you just join online as usual,
Oh, wait, that might.
you necessarily need Joe to join the Zoom.
Okay.
Actually,
I mean, you can. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, because if you were managing Jody's, I mean, we have enough outfielders, right?
Yeah, but I think Jody's out. Like, I'm not sure she's.
Yeah.
He might be listening. I don't know. Hi, Jody, if you are, but
Yeah.
Okay, so the whole.
She's not on here at the moment, that's for sure.
Correct.
yeah. Yeah, if she has what she was describing her kids had, she's probably barely sitting upright, poor thing.
Correct, yeah. So, yeah, Jim might be able to get in touch with someone because we're all locked off. So the two, like, give Jim a nice one.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, you can say, sure, yeah. I think just, well, I'm using it in my office as well, filing it at the moment, so it needs to be sorted, but I'll go with this and you can show me around.
All right, it looks like I'm online now.
ID followed by pound. Otherwise. You are in the meeting now. There are 3 participants in the meeting.
Another.
Are you currently in the meeting?
No. Okay. 300 and some homes. On the book. Well, it's like.
All of them. As well.
I read somewhere where they go back to 2020. That.
I hear Joe.
That's.
My mic's not on. Yeah, the speakers are off, my mic's not.
That sounds better. Well, wait, now I can't hear you at all.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right, perfect.
Yep, and the unmute can be controlled, just pushing button.
Yep, just that button right there.
Even on the panel, great.
All right, so I can mute it now.
Testing, can you hear me? Testing, can you hear me? Testing, can you hear me?
Boy, are you asking for our sound?
Yes, good morning.
I go, I'm just gonna remute him again. Okay.
Yes, can you hear me all right?
You sound good.
Can see him.
You should have signed.
Good morning.
There you go.
Morning.
Okay. Okay.
Good morning, everybody. It's Lori with GTC. Looks like we have about 11 people on so far. And the room is looking good, so I think we're on time to start right at 8:30. It felt like that was my final boarding call voice for some reason. And like usual, everybody joining remotely should be able to mute and unmute, as needed. Good morning, Mr. Campbell. Welcome to the GTC board.
Good morning, thank you.
Now unmuted. Now unmuted.
We are unmuted. We do have enough for a quorum.
Good morning.
Are you going to say anything about whatever first? No? Are you going to say anything? Yeah, we'll get the slideshow going. I think once you just call it to order and then I'll talk about the, very good, virtual. This will go ahead and call the meeting to order at this time. Get the slideshow going? Yep. Okay. Just trying to get the slideshow going for the folks online to be able to see.
Let me reshare here.
Lori, are you seeing it? I see you nodding your head.
Yes, I'm good.
Okay, we're not seeing it in the room.
Well, we can see it. There we go.
Thoughts? So with the cart maybe?
Let me just try to do this again.
Lori, do you have Julian's number?
I can get him.
Getting it quicker. Everything was running a few minutes ago when he was here. Apologize for the delay. We're just not able to see presentation in the room.
It might just be a matter of, can you see any? Maybe if I pinned,
We see all the Zoom, but we don't see, my presentation's not coming through on Zoom in the room.
hmm.
Disconnect the cart and
Laura, you're seeing slide 2, right?
Yes.
Yep. None.
Try going up to the little box up by the cart and see if there's an option to change the view.
We can do roll call and.
Right. Yeah, we can, if you're ready, Alex. You want to do roll while they're working on this?
Sure.
Can you try to refresh that? Just, there was a button showed meeting on this device.
Yeah, don't have.
I know it looks perfect for us.
Yeah,
And you left him in charge.
All right, well, it's not showing Alex's screen in the room, but it is showing it online. First screen, right?
my screen.
Yes, screen. Stop sharing. So Zoom, it's for everybody else, but no worries. Okay, the Zoom, our slideshow is showing up for everybody online, but it's not showing up.
Not showing up for the camera, this?
Yeah, all right, just give that blank screen.
All right, try it one more time.
Oh, Julian, if that works.
No, I should.
Oh, I should, yeah, it's just gonna show.
Yeah, so, that wasn't.
Let's see. You're just gonna connect.
Oh, okay. I'm just gonna have to do HDMI down there here.
Okay.
Seems like it was shown.
I get it.
See, it paid for all of us remote people to remote in. We're not missing a beat here. Apologies to everyone who had to drive in the snow to get there.
Well, while they're getting that going, I'll get, roll call and stuff going, work through that. Let me just get the slides up on my machine. So, the meeting is being held, hybrid, with our publicinput.com platform for the public to see and Zoom for our members and alternates to participate. The meeting is being recorded and archived for future viewing by the public. This is consistent with, our bylaws changes in June, which also allows for members that are joining online to count towards our quorum. Taking longer than expected to load on my machine. Roll call in a moment.
Here, I can read this part, Jim. We're also offering, oh, go back. Can you go back a slide?
Okay. Okay, for Genesee County, Ms. Stein.
Present.
Present.
Livingston
Livingston
County,
County, Mr. LaFever.
President.
Present.
You got some
We got
echo.
some echo happening. In our county legislature, Ms. Lamar. Ontario County, Mr. Campbell.
Present.
Peter's here. I think Mr. Campbell was online as well, but Peter is our vice chairperson, so, he also potentially has a role if you get hit by a bus or something. We're inside. Orleans County, Ms. Johnson.
John Pepinetti representing.
Thanks, John. Seneca County, Mr. Hazen.
That's Mr.
Wayne County,
Enslow.
Mr. Ignor.
Oh, from Seneca.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Enzo. I apologize, we did not update, the position, that was our mistake. Wayne County, Mr. Agnar. Jim Brady representing Bill Agnar. Wyoming County, Ms. Ryan. Yates County, Ms. Church. North County Executive, Mr. Bello. North County Planning Board, Mr. Santos. North County Supervisors Association, Mr. Schultz. North County at Large, Mr. Hogan.
Here.
North County at Large, Mr. McCann.
Scott Levis is representing.
City of Rochester Mayor's Office, Mr. Evans.
Richard Perrin representing.
Rochester City Council, Mr. Melendez.
Present.
Rochester City Planning Commission, Mr. Watson. Rochester at Large, Mr. Frisch.
Present.
Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council, Ms. Stein.
Yes.
RGRTA, Mr. Jeffries. Fire State Development Corporation, Ms. Knight.
Steve Golding representing.
New York State DEC, Mr. Segos.
Timothy Walsh representing.
New York State DOT, Ms. Dominguez.
Joel Kleinberg representing.
New York State Thruway Authority, Mr. Hoare. And from our federal partners, Federal Aviation Administration, Ms. Martinez. Federal Highway Administration, Mr. Marquis.
Adamani representing.
Federal Transit Administration, Mr. Goodman. We do have a quorum.
Thank you, Jim. At this time, we'll have the public forum be open. We'll take any comments from members of the public wishing to address the board. Also, if GT staff has any comments written from the public, they're at liberty now to present them to the board.
Lori, do we have anything online?
No, we don't. We are live streaming through public input. And we did not receive any written comments ahead of time, but it does look like we have 4 people viewing.
Okay, well, thank you. We have the approval of minutes next from the December 8th meeting in 2022. I'll ask for a motion and a second, please.
Genesee.
Second. Thank you. Are there any corrections to these minutes as they were presented in the board packet?
Oh, did you catch Scott got the second?
Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None are opposed, so they're carried. Thank you. I'd like to inform the board that, for informational purposes, we've been provided with the January 5th and February 9th Planning Committee meeting minutes, the draft forms, I guess. Looks like the minutes were approved for January 5th and the February 9th are in the draft forms, so
Yeah.
they're there for our informational purposes. Jim, some communications and announcements, please.
Yeah, so, some changes on the board, due to his election as the, chairman of the Ontario County Board of Supervisors. Todd Campbell is now a member of GTC. And I apologize, Seneca County, Mr. Winslow, I believe it is. Enslow, was recently, elected the chairman of their, Board of Supervisors, and we should have had that corrected. I apologize. New York State Thruway Authority Interim Executive Director, Frank Hoare, is a member of the GTC board now that, Mr. Driscoll is retired. And also RGRTA, newly appointed CEO Miguel Velasquez is now an alternate to Don Jeffries. Additional announcements. I mentioned at the last meeting that GTC offices were going to have to move. Monroe County, I want to express appreciation for the county finding us some other space within our building. The 8th floor is undergoing a complete renovation, so GTC and GFL RPC staffs had to move off the 8th floor. We have both completed our moves. GTC was provided some space on the 5th floor, and about a month ago, the county identified some space on the 2nd floor for GFL, so we no longer had to share the space. So that makes it a little bit helpful. However, the space is only 25% of what we had on the 8th floor. So we see this as an interim solution. My understanding is the county is continuing to look for different space that we might be able to utilize, but they're going through a complete space reutilization, and they're pulling people in from leased buildings into the owned building once the renovation is complete. So it'll still be a few months before they know where all the pieces are. And if they're not able to, there's the potential for us to lease on the open market. But Richard Sutherland and I have had conversations. We have a strong desire for the staffs to co-locate and collaborate. So should we have to go out in the private market or find a different space, the executive committees of both councils can work together on that. The Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations is our national association for MPOs like GTC. They have a policy committee that supports their board, and in January, I was selected to the policy committee for a 3-year term. The policy committee considers the impacts of existing proposed federal legislation, regulation, and policies as they affect MPOs, develops position statements and or white papers for the AMPO staff and members to use when discussing legislation with the members and elected officials, particularly in Congress. They work closely with the congressional committees of jurisdiction over transportation and have sway on the future transportation bill. So we're looking at being able to continue to have New York's voice at the table. It is a role that New York State has had continuously for many years, and looking to continue that tradition. So that is, an honor that I was selected, and I'm happy to represent our region on a national scale. And I see a thumbs up from Alex. Are we?
I think we're gonna reset.
Say that again?
We're gonna reset the Zoom.
Okay. If folks can, well, they need to disconnect and get back on? Okay.
We're trying to reset the.
Okay. If folks can hold on a moment, we're trying to reset the Zoom link in the in our meeting space, so hopefully folks in the room can see what you're seeing online.
Yeah, now we can see it. All right, was that a thumbs up? Can you see?
Yes. Looks good.
Against our federal grant, so it becomes in essence, a revenue instead of a liability and expense. So
Okay, we can hear you now.
our bylaws do require us to stay in Monroe County. So, all right, I think we are up and running. Alex just needs to advance to slide 17 and good to resume.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. We'll proceed with item number 5, reports and action on old business. Scott, if you would please provide us a report on the planning committee.
Good thing, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. The planning committee met on January 5th and February 9th and recommended GTC adopt the fiscal year 2023-2024 planning work program. Up the Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Performance Measure Monitoring Evaluation System.
You're kind of cutting out a little.
Then the federal fiscal years 2023-2027 transportation program requested by the RGRTA and New York State Department of Transportation. Then the National Performance Measures Report and the federal fiscal years 2023-2027 TIP by revising the highway safety performance targets. Additionally, the Planning Committee took the following actions. We approved the draft fiscal year 2023-2024 UPWP for public review. Approved scopes of work for 3 UPWP tasks. They were the Regional Safety Plan, the Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Resiliency Plan, and the Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Freight Plan Update. We also approved 5 administrative modifications to the federal fiscal year 2023-2027 Transportation Improvement Program as requested by Monroe County and the New York State Department of Transportation. Those projects were deferring phases of the Route 18 over Northrop and Smith Creek's bridge replacements project, deferring the phases of Route 33A over Erie Canal Bridge Replacement Project, increasing the total cost of the Monroe County Highway Preventive Maintenance number 12 project, increasing the total cost of the RTOC staffing federal fiscal years 2023 and 2027, and finally changing the source of the I-490 from Garnsey Road to I-90 Preventative Maintenance Project.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Jim, GTC staff report.
Just following up on a couple items I mentioned at the last meeting, the resiliency planning efforts that we've got going on for the new PROTECT program out of the bipartisan infrastructure law. A couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, at this meeting, the planning committee approved the scope of work for the regional resiliency plan. Joe is now preparing an RFP to go out, or do we have a schedule on when we plan to advertise? I don't recall.
No, it'll be next month.
But guidance was put out for the formula funds that are gone to New York State. The Federal Highway Administration has not released guidance yet on the discretionary funds that the MPO and local governments will be able to access. We expect them to be extremely similar, if not identical. So we're moving forward instead of waiting for those guidelines to start. We're moving forward to get going, and we can adapt if there's any significant deviation from the funds to the state versus the funds to everybody. Also, spending a fair bit of time on the planning for next year's total solar eclipse. Yesterday, Dan Schneiderman from RMSC and Deb Roth from Kids Out and About and RMSC board and myself presented to the RTS leadership team. I think I mentioned in October that we, in Rochester, hosted the American Astronomical Society's eclipse meeting. It was very well received, and as a result of that, Deb Ross was asked to co-chair the National Eclipse Task Force, try to keep getting the word out. Locally, we have over 400 active participants across the 9-county region that are engaged in across all sectors of the economy. And really, Rochester is seen as a leader in the nation on planning for this effort. I reached out to my counterparts in the path of the eclipse, just to see if anybody's doing any planning to potentially present what we're doing at our national AMPO conference, and pretty much heard back. Well, I'd say the most shocking one was Indianapolis saying, "Oh, thanks for the heads up. I wasn't aware this was coming. I'll have to see who's working on this in our community." So, hopefully, all our efforts will lead to a successful event and one that has, it's hard to say minimal impact, but maybe the smoothest impact of any area.
Schools have already decided on vacation one day.
Good.
That's already done.
Yeah, Monroe, BOCES 1 and 2 are recommending that, and I think they're just waiting for school calendars to be officially adopted, but we're looking at so that the week before the eclipse is traditionally a vacation week after Easter. This would extend that break one day to the following Monday. There was a big concern. What do you do about students. And, absolutely, we didn't want students on the school bus at 3:30 in the afternoon. Number one, they missed this once in a lifetime opportunity in your area, because it's gonna be 125 years before it comes back to Rochester. And also being potentially stuck in traffic, we didn't want that either. But, then they, the state education department was involved in the Board of Regents. But it sounds like more and more, districts are, they're looking to just extend a day and deal with the ramifications of that. And the parents say, I gotta find another day of childcare or whatever the case might be. So, we're working to hopefully have a good experience for all our visitors, with the Visitors Association estimating between 375 and 500,000 visitors to our region. We want to create a good experience and hopefully, it boosts our region and provides business, small businesses opportunities to help out in a time of year that's usually pretty slow, I think, for a lot of places. Next, the federal, that's it for the, staff report.
Good, thank you. And you continue on with the federal legislative and funding update?
Okay, so at the last meeting, I had talked about a continuing resolution that was in place through December 16th to cover the federal budget. That continuing resolution was extended slightly longer to December 23rd, at which time Congress passed the omnibus appropriations bill to cover all the 12 spending bills, and the president did sign that. However, it did have a short continuing resolution through December 30th to allow the time it takes to process the bill, transmit it to the president for his signature. So they gave up to 7 days for that process, and I think he did it in 4 or 5. But you had holiday times in there. It was a complex time. The package, on December 29th, the president did sign its $1.7 trillion in spending through September 30th. Within that, $106.3 billion is for U.S. Department of Transportation, and that is $3.4 billion higher than last year. And, that's in line with what the multi-year transportation bill had offered. Continuing on, the bipartisan infrastructure law has a lot of discretionary grant opportunities. I don't expect anybody to memorize this, so I'm not going to go through it in detail, but I did present to the planning committee 2 weeks ago all the different upcoming opportunities that we're aware of, and we're trying to keep track of this and trying to, when we're aware of particular projects, we're trying to reach out to the project sponsor and say, hey, here's a potential funding opportunity. So if in any of your counties you're aware of projects, transportation projects that have a need that either are beyond your fiscal capacity, they're complex, or they're somewhat unique, reach out. We'll try to see what funding sources it might fit and what we can do to provide assistance. I see Joel Kleinberg nodding his head. Region 4 is a resource as well. So we've got 2 slides here. As you can see, for the next few months, there's a lot of different opportunities across a broad range of categories. So again, we'll work through the planning committee. We'll have the resources available on our website. And if any of your communities or even your counties have projects in mind, please reach out.
Jim, are you aware of the DOT's Key Notices of Funding Opportunity webpage? They have dates and other items on there.
Yeah, that's where I got this from. So
Okay.
if you go, Alex, to the next slide, we do have, these are resources we're putting up on our website. So the US DOT does have key dates for funding opportunities. They try to anticipate when their notices of funding opportunity are going to come available. They also have what they call the DOT Navigator, where you can go in and say, I'm a county with a bike ped project. What fund sources might there be? So they're trying to make it easier to identify some opportunities. And they've also have a checklist that says, hey, if you're going to go after a discretionary grant, here's the kinds of things you need to have in place. One of the key things they talk about is being registered with grants.gov. because all the funding opportunities are going through there, all the applications, and that process can sometimes take a week or more. So if your agency is already pursuing federal grants, they're already in this, but if they're not, it's better to get set up sooner than later. And then, that way you have an account, and it's one less thing you have to worry about when you're on a timeline for an application date. There is also a resource, focused particularly on opportunities in rural areas, transportation.gov/rural. There is a concerted effort. Some of the programs says 50% in rural areas, 50% in urban areas. So, and I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but they have ROUTES, and it's Rural Opportunities, something. And, again, the transportation programs geared towards rural areas that, have needs that don't always, haven't always been well funded. So there's a concerted effort to look at, serve up rural areas as well with resources unique to them. That's the legislative and funding update. My best to answer questions anybody might have.
As you mentioned, but I think last meeting there was.
Yeah, so we had in the TIP amendments, there is one amendment for carbon reduction, and we did a planning committee action for one of them. So the carbon reduction program, we've been provided our federal fiscal year 2022 and 2023 amounts. So we worked through the TIP development committee, or the planning committee. Joel Kleinberg and I collaborated, looked for opportunities for using eligible funds or eligible projects for the carbon reduction program. Because the amount was so small, only about 1.2 million, it didn't make sense to do a big solicitation. We're also waiting, the New York State has to submit a plan for a carbon reduction strategy to the feds by November. And once that plan is in place, or that strategy is in place, the investments need to be in line with that. So that's, state has not released funds that can be used. The ones to the Rochester large urban area were, the way the legislation was written up, there was specific allocations by large urban area. So that's where those came from. But yeah, we are putting them to work.
Sounds good. If there's no further discussion, I will, as we just mentioned TIP here a minute or so ago, but I will mention that the TIP staff modifications report is included in our meeting packet for informational purposes, and if anyone has any further questions on that, staff can answer them at this time.
Again, these are low impact actions that don't even elevate to the planning committee level, but we report them out every quarter as any actions that took place.
Thank you, Jim. We do have a few action items this morning. I'm going to ask for a motion in a second to have an overview of the Unified Planning Work Program.
I'll move it.
Thanks. We do have a motion in a second. Jim, you would provide kind of an overview.
Sure. I'm pinch hitting. Jody was planning to present this, but the stomach bug is rampant through her house, so she apologizes for not being able to be here. I can cover this. So the Unified Planning Work Program is our annual work program, effective April 1 through March 31st. The plan was developed during the fall when we reached out to all the communities, towns, villages, counties, cities, agencies. Do you have a transportation planning need? We did update the application from previous cycles to really focus on the 10 planning factors that are required within our federal planning regulation. We streamlined the application a little bit. We did receive 20 applications requesting $1.5 million, and we had about $1.1 million available for new projects. After the the UPWP Development Committee reviewed, they came to a recommendation for projects to be funded, studies to be funded, and presented that to the planning committee in January that approved for public, a 30-day public review that commenced or ended February 8th. I do want to thank the Unified Planning Work Program Development Committee, what we call the UDC. It represents Monroe County, Ontario County, Wayne County, Livingston County, you know, that are primary core area that we used to refer to as the metropolitan planning area. We're trying to change that definition a little bit, but we refer to it as our regional core, and that's where the biggest development is. We also have the city of Rochester and RGRTA on that group. So it's a cross-section to represent, it's not decisions made in a vacuum. But time and effort in reviewing applications and scoring, we really appreciate their efforts. Anything here? During the public review, we didn't receive any significant comments that would change the planning committee's recommendation, and so on February 9th, they did recommend the draft that was included in your meeting package. And if you approve this today, we will send everything up to New York State DOT and our federal partners, and that it will take effect April 1st. One thing to note, projects that are not completed by March 31st will automatically roll over. However, when we're preparing the application, we only have 2 quarters of activity, or preparing the document, we only have 2 quarters of activity. So we put in the financial tables, what our balances are, and every June we do a reconciliation of actual values, balances as of March 31st. So you will see a budget amendment like I always do. Go to these notes to make sure I didn't miss anything. We did have 16 projects funded. One project was withdrawn. Essentially, Tennessee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council has accumulated a balance over the years for their land use monitoring report. And rather than add to that balance, they're going to draw down and do the 2022 activity, 2023 permit activity with the balances they have, and that lessened the request. 4 projects that were requested were not funded. That I will do my best to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, Jim. Is there any further discussion before we consider adopting this work program? Yes.
Just that on the list of the county legislature and board of supervisors, we now change it from to be determined to add Todd Kemp as the chairman now.
Oh, yeah, and the draft, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
We will fix that, yes. And we'll make sure that Seneca County has the correct name as well. I looked at other pieces, quite honestly, I didn't look at that page.
Sounds good. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adopting this plan? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sounds like none were opposed, so we'll consider this adopted at this time.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah, we can look for a motion in a second. We have an item on the UPWP task. I'd ask for that at this time, please.
Joel Kleinberg, so moved.
Thanks. We have a motion and a second. Jim, if you'd provide an overview of this one item.
Sure. This is a project that was done in conjunction with Monroe County and the state DOT. Joe Vivenzi was the project manager on it, and really is best positioned to talk about the project, and I want to give him an opportunity to present. So Joe will be talking about this.
Well, thank you, Jim. I'll try to keep it relatively brief. So the objective of the project was to set up create a program for evaluating regional transportation system performance data generated from the RTOC, so from ITS fuel devices, help trucks, that kind of source, and then create a performance measure reporting system where we can take that data and then generate information about how the transportation system is performing. So the project was organized into 2 phases. Phase one was focused on understanding the RTOC's needs in terms of what performance measures would be helpful for them, what data is being collected, how it's being stored and managed, what the gaps are in those data sources, and then what the ideal capabilities or functions of a performance measurement system would be. Then phase two was the actual development of or building out of the system, which we refer to informally as a database. But really the core of the system is what's referred to as a ticketing module. So the way it works is that whenever an issue is reported to the RTOC, they create a ticket and they can follow that issue from when the incident is first reported all the way through to resolution. And it's designed so that there is a reporting system that operators can go in and extract information about each individual incident or event. And so this data can be used for a variety of ways to identify trends in service calls, to look at potential improvements to incident response, to identify a specific problem area on a roadway or a ITS device that's not operating the way it should be. So the system should be understood really as a work in progress. The initial development and build out of the system is complete, but it's designed to be periodically modified and altered by the RTOC staff without the need for external support. That was one of our concerns, was we have a system where we don't have to worry about, licensing and paying annual fees and all that. So it's designed to be internally maintained and operated. And we expect as time goes on and it's, populated with data, that it will provide an additional, valuable source of information to help us, make decisions both at the daily operations level as well as the long-term planning level for ITS deployments or even potentially capital improvement projects as well. So that's kind of my high-level overview. If there's any questions, I'll try to answer them.
I did want to point out, as noted in the packet, the planning committee received a more detailed presentation at its January meeting and has recommended your approval of this, or your acceptance of this.
Thank you very much. Is there any further discussion before we consider voting on this? Hearing none, I'd ask for a vote to accept this task. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None, that's carried. Thank you. Next, we have some 2023 to 2027 TIP amendments. I think we have 3 of them. We could consider these all in one action unless someone objects to that, where they'd like us to have a separate vote on an individual item here. But if no one objects to considering all 3 at once, I'd ask for a motion and a second to do the discussion on these items. A motion and a second. Very good. We can, Jim, overview, please, of.
Sure. The first project is deferring phases of Route 31 from City Line to I-590 preventive maintenance project. This amendment is requested by New York State DOT. One of the things that they have encountered is some desires from the town of Brighton to look at how the side streets come in at a skew, and can anything be done to, as part of this project, to help relieve some of that, and then some other corridor operations. So DOT said, hey, let's take a step back, have some more conversations with the town, and delay the construction, because we can't have a full meaningful conversation with the town and adapt to any requests without some relief in the schedule. This project is funded with funds from the main office, and they're not available to any other project, so this doesn't affect any other project. It doesn't interfere with fiscal constraints. So we're important to note that, oh, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. So this will just push out construction a year to allow more coordination with the town. The next project is Route 15 Corridor Operation Enhancement Project. I've mentioned at past meetings that New York State Region 4 has been working with bringing in consultants to support their design staff. They didn't have the capacity to to design all the projects that, they had needs for. And this is routinely done by cities and towns and villages and counties. The state had limited experience with that, and the procurement process of bringing a consultant on board takes longer than if they were designing in-house. So what this is doing is stretching out deferring the design so that a consultant can be brought in and design this project. The construction will be pushed beyond the tip horizon, and that's why you see it as future years. The intention is still to fund the project in the future, it's just beyond the window that's presented in the tip. The next project, back to Eric's question about carbon reduction program, we're proposing to use some of the funds for operations building here on the RGRTA campus. I think you're aware from the last meeting, they received grants to pursue hydrogen fueled buses and the fueling stations, looking to utilize some carbon reduction program funds to make additional improvements to the operations building to support the maintenance of vehicles. When Eric had asked the question, I mentioned the other project. When Scott gave his report, he mentioned a modification related to the Regional Traffic Operations Center. That is an activity that is listed under the eligible activities for the carbon reduction program. So we look to put the 2022 funds on that project and then free up some funds that will work with the TIP Development Committee to put to use on other projects that are not eligible for the carbon. These actions were recommended for your approval by the Planning Committee on February 9th, and I will questions you might have.
Thank you, Jim. Hearing no further discussions, I guess we consider taking a vote on these amendments. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None, they're carried. Next, I'd ask for a motion and a second to consider amending the National Performance Measures Report. Motion. Do we have a second? Or? Well, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Jim, if you would please discuss this, amending this performance report.
Sure. This is something that we've come to you every year with some updates. It gets a little technical, and we have lots of different performance areas. So Alex will actually talk about this one. He's way more knowledgeable about it than I am.
Thank you, Jim. Each year, New York State, through both NISDOT and the Governor's Traffic Safety Council, as part of their annually required reports to Federal Highway Administration and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, respectively, have to set and submit safety performance targets. Thankfully, in New York State, both entities submit the same targets. So together speaking in one statewide voice, this board has agreed to date to support the state's targets, and these reports are included in both our National Performance Measures Report, which is incorporated into the Long Range Plan by reference, as well as the Transportation Improvement Program. So for 2020, so the targets are being set for 2023 based on a baseline of 2020. So the targets, these are, while some of the targets, as you can see, are an increase from the targets in 2022, they are intending to still be a decrease from the base year of 2020. And these measures are number of fatalities and serious injuries and the rates of fatalities and serious injuries, as well as the number of non-motorized crashes, meaning pedestrians and bicyclists. So since we've been setting targets, we've now actually had, in the past couple of years, the reporting years have come up to meet the future targets. And so for the latest year, of which full data is available, we can see that that the actuals for the 5-year rolling average, ending in the year 2021, that significant progress in accordance to meeting the targets was met only in the number of fatalities. There's still continuing progress to go, but this is part of the iterative effort that's done each year. There's a couple of reasons why some of these, I'd like to know quickly why there's failure to meet significant progress. First is a change in the, is an update relative and adoption of the definition of serious injuries. So there has been some increase as a result of that, and better reporting practices across the state. So making progress in that. But then also in 2020, we've had such a decrease in vehicle miles traveled that has also increased the rate. While unfortunately the number of fatalities and serious injuries has stayed pretty consistent.
That is a pattern across the country where
It's a pattern across
the volume of traffic dropped, but the crashes and the serious injuries and fatalities didn't really drop. So, that throws off the rate when your bottom number changes, but your top number doesn't.
Contrary to expectations. So as part of not meeting significant progress, NISDOT does submit a highway safety improvement program implementation plan. So that's redoubling efforts to implement the strategic highway safety plan, as well as making sure that all highway safety improvement program projects are obligated and refocusing targets on that, including what will be a roadway departure safety action plan coming up soon. We've seen the pedestrian safety action plan in previous years. So really becoming more focused and targeted efforts for emphasis areas. These targets were recommended for your approval by the Planning Committee this month.
I just want to add, GTC staff is focused on safety. We have a couple UPWP projects. We have Wyoming County we're working with, and then our regional, what is the safety?
Yeah, we will be going out for procurement very soon on a regional safety plan, so that we can address and focus our efforts strategically across all partners, to implement the strategic highway safety and the highway safety strategic part plans, as well as working with the Monroe County Traffic Safety Board and other interdisciplinary partners, so we can have a unified strategy so that we can contribute towards achieving these targets as well. Happy to answer any questions about these targets or other safety activities.
Well, very good. If there's no further discussion, we'll have a vote to agree with amending this these performance measures. So I guess all those in favor of the amending these measures, just say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. That's carried. Next item on our agenda is new business.
Before moving to it,
Oh,
I
sorry,
just wanted
Jen.
to just give everybody a heads up. You're going to see the performance measures again next meeting. There are some other categories for which the state had to submit figures to the federal government. And when they transmitted to us, the timing was such that we couldn't incorporate them into the change. The ones we did today were reported to the feds in August, and we had 180 days to incorporate them. So we couldn't wait on these and try to present them together. So we wouldn't normally be bringing you the performance measures to two consecutive meetings, but I want to give you that heads up, and we're working to craft a report to build on what Alex talked about, some of the accomplishments. We'll be able to articulate that a little more fully in the report. That's not something we've had in previous iterations.
Can I just ask on this? I mean, for safety and some other ones, it would appear that, we're adopting the statewide targets, right?
Yes.
So if we're doing that, would you want to treat it almost like planning committee actions, like we do with certain TIP amendments? I mean, if we're supporting the statewide targets, it could be reported back to this group, and then if there's any discussion on it. I'm just thinking if for some reason you need to hit that 180-day date, it's a little bit easier because you have twice as many scheduled planning committee meetings before meetings. Sometimes, if there's no action, But just the thought would be if it's, you know, it's important, and I think the board needs to know about these targets. But I'm just thinking, you know, in that event, we're just supporting the state ones. It's not as if there's a policy decision to be made by, this board.
Yeah.
Unless we make the decision that we want to say, well, hold on, we want to pull out and do our own, which, you know, would take a lot, quite a bit, quite frankly, for all of these matters. So I'm just saying, you know, maybe something for the staff to mull over and think about.
Yeah, that's, you know,
I don't know if other
a good
board
suggestion on my
members-
part, or on your part, sorry, not on my part. But from my perspective, the point you raised about, you know, matching the state criteria or the state measures, and we would still continue to report that out, if that is, something that the board would be comfortable with, you know, come April, possibly May, we know we have some new figures we're gonna digest. And if anybody in the planning committee thought that, hey, this needed to go to the board for action, they can certainly raise that like we've done on other items, and then basically treat this like an information item at a future meeting. Or maybe we can wait till the next meeting to decide how, we'll get through this one and decide how we wanna do it going forward.
Yeah, I know, I just suggest maybe you just look at the pros and cons of doing it, and then to some group, whether it's a planning committee and the executive committee, or even, you know, the full board for them to do it. You know,
Yeah,
like
I mean,
said, it's
we've made some tweaks along the way. When we first did the performance measures many years ago, we put them into our long-range transportation plan. And then the first year, we got an update to the safety, like, wait, we're gonna have to reopen our long-range plan and go to a 45-day review, and then we created this standalone performance measures report for that very reason, so that we're updating this report that's outside of our long-range plan, and our long-range plan incorporates it by reference. So the idea of streamlining something that, you know, in essence, we're not creating separate targets, and you may recall that I've talked about the idea of serious injury crashes or fatal crashes at the regional level. There was a bus crash on 390 several years ago in Livingston County where a traveling hockey team the bus was broken down on the side of the shoulder, 390, and a truck hit the bus. That was kind of a very unusual situation, but would completely skew the numbers at a regional level. A few years later, downstate, there was a limousine that went out of control and was like 19 people died. If that region had its own targets, 19 fatalities is just going to blow away any region's target. But on the statewide level, if you have a significant issue in one location and next year in a different location, it's the consequences from a performance standpoint are less, they're more diffuse. So, yeah, if the state doesn't meet certain targets, then the Fed say, okay, well, you have to focus spending on these areas until you're back in line with your performance measures. That was one of the big reasons I had suggested not doing regional targets. And as Rich pointed out, if we set regional targets, we have to collect the data, we have to analyze the data and make sure we're getting everything. And that's a big lift where the state's doing it on a statewide scale. You get economies of scale that way. And they provide us access to the systems to retrieve the information.
That's a great recommendation, Rich. I just want to ask, is there any conflict with?
We'll have to research that a little bit.
I want to make sure we're doing everything.
Yeah, I want to make sure that, from a federal perspective or state perspective, there's not a problem there.
Yeah.
That is this a policy committee decision, or it can be delegated, but, you know, that we'll take a little time to figure that out.
Yeah, maybe ask the other New York State MPOs how they're handling it, way you cover both the federal and the state, you know.
Yeah, we'll, you know, the MPO directors get together on a regular basis, usually every other week. We have a conference call. So this is, something that, probably others are wondering too, and as Rich points out, I can see what others are doing. Oh, thanks for raising that. It's not even something I had thought about.
Just you end up with that 180-day deadline, and, you know,
Yeah.
and that would be, you know, special meeting just for performance.
Right.
Change a target that changes it.
Yeah, and if we don't hit that 180 day deadline, then, you know, it ends up being a freeze on certain funds until we do take that action, and we don't ever want to do that, particularly when it, you know, in this case, safety funds, we would never want to have a freeze on that, so.
Understand what you're doing, but you know what I struggle with? Are we really trying to look at what's going on out there, or are we just trying to stay within measures and performance? Yeah, just from, and I'm not in, you guys are in this business, you know what you're doing, but no, are we really, what are we doing? Are we trying to stay within criteria, or are we really trying to look and see what's going on and what the trends are? That's just me from, but I don't wanna bring in a big discussion,
No, but I think
you
in
know,
our
are we
region,
just trying to massage and get into a certain criteria, or are we really
honestly, I
wanna know
don't
what's going
see
on?
us, we're not picking projects to try to meet the targets. We're picking projects that make sense, and,
I'm not
you know,
criticizing.
our cities and the counties, and the state DOT, when they come to us with safety projects, there has to be a demonstrated deficiency, and has to be effective countermeasures. It's not just enough to say, oh, there's multiple crashes. Like, we had a tip proposal several years ago where, somebody wanted to repave the road, and they cited safety. Well, a person got hit in a crosswalk, a drunk driver went up on the sidewalk and hit a person, and I think another one, they were walking in the road or something. And so you had 3 different crashes that were near each other, but they were at different causes. There was no pattern. And what they were proposing wouldn't have fixed any of those. So it was like, well, nice try, but that's not a safety project. Whereas, you know, safety projects, you know, if there's T-bone crashes, if there's right angle crashes in Ontario County, many of their intersections, they've converted to, roundabouts, because you had high-speed, four-legged intersections, and sometimes the vehicles in one direction didn't have a stop sign, and the other direction did, and those that weren't familiar enough might have made the assumption that the others are gonna stop and they pull out. With the roundabout, you don't have to worry about that. These are the kinds of things that, can we go out with low-cost effective solutions that's like adding double stop signs on each side and, you know, big signs, traffic coming the other way doesn't stop. Those kinds of things are always tried first, before a major construction. But to your point, I don't see us in this region picking projects to try to hit targets. We're really about picking the right projects, and the data should take care of itself.
But I drive around a lot. I've been on a lot of state roads lately that there hasn't been the accidents yet, but they've big potholes in them and they're deteriorating. They're, just my opinion.
Yeah.
What I observed driving around, there's a lot of state roads where they put the divots, you know, the safety divots in there, and there's compromising. I'm talking about, you know, outside of Monroe County, it's like, I don't wanna get off
but David's referring
the weeds,
to,
but I'm saying there's these roads that need action right now, and rather than waiting for a performance measure and counting the accidents.
yeah, so,
That's what I'm saying. But
the performance measures are strictly about crashes. The pavement condition has its own performance measures, but,
okay.
David was referring to the divots. We have many places in the region up to center line. They're called cards, center line, audible.
Auditory response device.
Yeah, so basically the rumble strips up the center line, so if you get a little you doze off a little bit and drift across the yellow line, it's gonna wake you up, and that's, helpful for, you know, vehicles, places where vehicles are drifting off the side of the road. But water collects in them, and then the freeze-thaw cycle happens, and it gets to be a challenge. But DOT pavement, you know, I don't wanna speak too much for Joel, but he can weigh in. It's something that they're always trying to catch up, particularly this time of year. The freeze-thaw cycle is brutal, and until they kind of get past that, a little bit of patching is all that can be accomplished. Sometimes that facility's already on the schedule for, you know, a larger scale project to grind out, we call mill and fill, so they're gonna mill away some of the pavement and then repave. It helps that, but, you know, there's everywhere, at every level, more need than capacity to pay for those fixes.
Thank you. New business?
One thing that I should have mentioned when I talked about our new office space, if anybody wants to see the office space, David was gonna come down today. You're welcome to come down today or come another time. Staff is still splitting time between home and office, especially with the smaller space, so, we're happy to, have you, as long as we know you're coming, particularly since, it used to be a lot easier to get to our front door. Now we're in a secure hallway that, we're expecting any day now. The other door will be closed, because right across the hall from us is the county, servers, and, for very good reason, they want to keep that hallway secure, so, we would just need to know that somebody's coming.
Genesee County, as this past, Blizzard Elliott, had 4 towns that were severely impacted by the closure of the New York State Highway and weather. Are looking for emergency communication, so that would include any ones that tell us where to go when a road is closed, and they sent 1,050. So, Google Maps and those higher level folks that don't pay attention maybe to what has been happening at Blizzard, we and our state emergency will be working with the communication on our mapping. But I would think that transportation voice in that, because we could also apply this to the eclipse, right? So if there's a way that we can have a voice together that talks about helping Google, helping Meta say, look, this is not a safe place at this time. The closure of the New York State Thruway, when it happens in our county, dumps people at Pembroke, at Batavia, and there's no place for them to go. 1,050 people were stranded in communities that do not have the capacity. So if you read any of the information, we had 150 people in an old building that was the Alabama Hotel. It's just a restaurant. But they were safe, they were secure, and in our county, nobody died, because our folks worked all through the Christmas holiday, making sure that fire stations were open and schools were open to receive people. Some of our county staff members took people and brought them into their heated garage, and that's where they had Christmas. It was a horrific situation where volunteers are dedicated enough to make sure that nobody did die. But that communication piece, we have to be a part of, because if you're talking about safety, we didn't have any safety plan other than do what we can. When the wind stopped, we had a payloader, followed by snowplows, followed by the sheriff, followed by the wrecker, and then the coroner, because we didn't know what we were expecting. And that happened for 24 hours around the clock until we found all the vehicles. And they were just stopped where they were. They couldn't go any further. So communication, and I would think that transportation would want to have a voice on this in the future. Thank you.
No, thank you for raising that, because I think of, when something like the thruway closure happens or other emergencies that happen, there is the 511 system, there's systems to get some word out, but places like Meta and Google are not incorporating that. And there's a blizzard going on in Minnesota right now, and they're talking a couple feet. So
Right.
I'm thinking with my spot on the Ample Policy Committee, we can elevate this and even say at a national level, all the states should be able to feed, and Google should be able to be tied into that system, and Waze and the GPS, any of these services that are rerouting people would want to have that feed
Right.
and incorporate
So if
that.
they just sent them south, but everybody wanted to go to Niagara Falls and get into Canada
Yeah,
for, you know, family Christmases, we had people from 13 different countries that were just snowed in.
yeah.
Language was a barrier. You know, we had people driving around in sandals and pajama pants with no safety equipment in their cars. They're like, well, this road's open. This road's not open.
Yeah,
So if you could raise that at your policy level, if
Yeah, I
you
think,
know, that would be very helpful. But I know that our Commissioner of Emergency Services here in New York State is also pushing forward. So if that's something we could do as a Regional Transportation Council, add our voice, I would appreciate that very much.
and I can raise it with our statewide association, and the only reason I mentioned the national is that if they're hearing this from across the country, they might, you know, be more open to, yeah, this is a challenge that we need to incorporate in our algorithms, and that's not just Western New York. It's,
Right,
I heard there might be snow in Los Angeles, so.
yeah. So thank you for that.
I hadn't thought of that, but, yeah, that is, thank you.
Is there any other new business? Next meeting will be here, June 8th. Hearing nothing further, I'd ask for a motion in a second to adjourn. Motion in a second, all those in favor?
Hi.
Opposed, carried, meeting stands adjourned.
And thank you, everyone, for your patience during the technical challenges.
That's done for me.
Oh. Counting on me to fix it, it'll be. Meeting.